Jim Starsov. I am project manager at KC Digital Drive. We help, co-sponsor this location. I do entrepreneurship and innovation. I'm actually kind of a long-term serial entrepreneur. I've had about 4 different startups over the past now 23 years, which just tells you how old I am with it. From the XR space, I have gotten much more involved. We hosted a developers challenge last year to bring in some companies to do that. I'm on the advisory board at UCM's XR Lab. I'm a adjunct faculty member at KU School of Nursing related to a Metaversity project. With it, I co-lead the Kansas City AR/VR group. With that, and with Doug, we're kicking off a new chapter of the VR ARA, which is the Virtual Reality Augmented Reality Association, which is a global organization to do that. So that's about as much as you will hear from me. Well, the only other thing I'll say, so we do. I'm currently working, I think, with 6. I was counting in my head 6 startups that are in the AR/VR space in Kansas City. So it's just kind of a surprise to people. I know you don't hear about a lot of the companies that are, but there's definitely quite a few kind of these merging companies coming in. We are very low tech, as I said today. Didn't bring any hardware and everything else. I will say, if anybody's interested, we are hosting our first whatever.
VR ARA.
VR ARA.
XRA.
Association meeting, which is going to be hosted at Mike's Lab at UMKC. On January 31st. So you can come to our site, the KC Digital Drive website, if you want to sign up for that event. But we'll be in their lab. You'll get a chance to have all sorts of hands-on experience with that. You get about $3-4 million worth of equipment in there that
everything.
You're gonna play around with. So it will be fun. So with that, I'd like for my 3 panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves, and I'll do a few questions. I will say I speak a lot all over. I am all about interactive sessions. I like people to jump in. So even if we're not officially in the QA, if you've got something that you want to bring up or address as they're talking, feel free to do it. Jeff.
So last time we discussed the VR, ARA, and whatever it is. So what exactly are we gaining by converting from KC?
That's probably a discussion for something outside of this group, but yeah. So it's just a larger association that gives us some global resources. So that was one of the advantages of bringing it in, and part of it was we were willing to cut a check to do it. So that's the biggest draw. That's what held us back from joining the association before. So with that, Joe.
Cool. I'm Joe Sukon. A little bit about me. I work at Barclays, so Keynote Matt. I work on his team. I'm a senior XR developer from there. I started off doing a lot of front-end web development at New Balance Athletics, so I got to work with all shoes, and I'm a big shoe junkie, so if anybody out there, feel free to come up after this. I moved to Kansas City to work on Matt's team. I spent my first few years there working on landing pages, banner ads, really anything our clients needed. Then I started getting really interested in AR and VR as that started taking off. So during the pandemic, I just self-taught myself how to code in AR, Effect House, Meta, all the social media AR, VR platforms. I just taught myself by reading documentation. So anyone out there who wants to get in, they just go YouTube stuff. You can figure it out and just keep that drive, keep going, and that's where we moved to now. So now I work on just fun projects that we can push to our clients. So that's a little about me.
Thank you. Well, I'm Doug Hohulin. I worked with Motorola and Nokia for 33 years. And last year I retired to work on immersive technology in education and healthcare. And as Jim and I mentioned, we're working with the KU School of Nursing, faculty member with nursing students on immersive technology, also looking at healthcare. Working with a company called MetaView. We actually submitted 2 projects that we won $150,000 worth of prize money in the Metaverse and XR technology in healthcare and education. So, this is an exciting time to be in this space around the Metaverse and around XR technology and digital media. It's going to change as much, and I'll be talking about that when they ask the questions, but it's going to be a really exciting time. And just excited for these, many of these young people on, what this journey is going to be. So looking forward to the questions and the comments.
And I'm Michael Eikens here. I run the AR/VR lab at UMKC, and I teach VR development there. Besides that, I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a startup, and if you were in the entrepreneurial talk, they talked about Digital Sandbox. We've actually won that grant about a year ago. So if you have questions about that, let me know. I've been doing startups for about 10 years now. Right now, solely focused on VR. And yeah, if you have any questions about how to get that rolling, I really want to double down on what Joe said about you just have to teach yourself. Almost all companies right now are hiring for VR and AR, but they all are terrible at hiring for it. Pretty much every VR AR position that I've helped people get has been labeled as data scientist, which is not AR VR. Spare maybe a little visualization. So you're running up against, there's a lot of opportunities, but no one knows how to ask for those opportunities. So you really got to double down on networking and stuff and really make your portfolio stand out if you want to get a job in this stuff.
So to be clear, you just said you work at a university and you're encouraging people to learn on their own. It's okay.
Universities are perfect for meeting people. That's really what they're for.
Do you want to call out your company name too, or?
Oh, it's called VR Dojo.
Yeah.
We're making multiplayer networking systems, specifically a game called Dust. If you have a headset, let me know. We can play it.
Okay. On that topic, do you have a headset? Who here has been in a headset before? Out of curiosity. Oh, look at that. Yep. So, as you know, Matt quoted, it's a little over 60 million, so it's about 20% of the population. You guys are well exceeding that in this room. So, all right, my questions are pretty simple. I wanted to start off just level set when we talk. You know, we throw out a lot of terms. You know, you'll hear Metaverse and XR and AR, VR and VAR, AR, and you know, lots of acronyms and things. So I just kind of want everybody here just a brief definition. So here's the three things. What is Metaverse? What is XR? What is Web3? My personal favorite one, because there's about 100 definitions of that.
For me, and they can argue this, I mean, they're all almost interlocked, basically. The metaverse, it's not a one thing. You hear it all the time. There's the social side. There's the physical side. They can see people every time they have headsets. I saw some cool examples of flight simulators that some, like Boeing uses to help train pilots on certain situations, which is totally opposite from just the social, you know, things you see on TikTok. So it's really a collection of systems that encompass everything. Like XR is basically an umbrella term, and our Web3 is just kind of their new format of, you know, how that all looks like, how you're going to find it. Because if you try to go explain to someone what the internet is, good luck. How do you explain that now with the augmented reality overlays or anything like that? So it's really just kind of an umbrella for this lane of thought and technologies.
And for me, I would say the metaverse is the spatialized internet. So an internet is basically a network of computers, of the computer networks, both private and professional and public internet networks, and how they interconnect, how they operate. So there's computers, servers. Then you have devices. How you get to the internet is through either, you know, laptops or desktops or mobile phones. And now you're going to be going to the internet via these immersive devices. So the metaverse, which actually, by the way, that name will probably change in the next 2 years. And, you know, in the old days, the internet was the the high-speed data. What was it? The information superhighway. Yes, that was the name before, and that was there for a couple of years, and then it went away. So my guess.
Do you think Facebook's going to have to change their name again?
Yeah, especially since they lost all their money. So Meta is going to go. That's my prediction. In 3 years, we won't be saying Metaverse. We'll be saying something else. Spatial web is actually my vote. So there's that. Now, so what the internet is to the World Wide Web. You know, Web 3 is basically, you know, the next generation of the World Wide Web. So like in, you know, Web 1, we had browsers, we had websites, and we had servers. Web 2.0 was mobile devices. You know, we're now having more people connect to the internet with mobile devices, 58%, than traditional, you know, laptops devices, fixed devices. And then you have apps is the logic of it, and then you have cloud computing. So that's Web 2. So Web 3 is going to be about artificial intelligence, and we'll talk a little bit about that maybe through this talk, but about generative AI, you know, being able to create amazing things. So instead of the internet of dumb things, the internet is pretty dumb and it can do very stupid things. You're going to have the intelligent network of intelligent things. And then finally, the data, instead of having servers and clouds, is going to be decentralized and blockchain. And the Web 3.0 is around blockchain, decentralization. So it's not centralized servers, it's more distributed.
So I think all I heard there was, so Web 2 is dumb and Web 3 is intelligent.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
Those are pretty good definitions. Yeah, Metaverse for me is it's just shared experience, right? So metaverse is actually, if you really think of the word meta and verse, right? Universe is all of this. Meta is data about data, so it's just the metaverse. So any shared experience could be considered metaverse, right? We're talking cave paintings, that's metaverse. All that's different now is digital has just exponentialized the ability for us to connect with each other and do these metaverse things. Unfortunately, a majority of metaverse definitions, and these guys were actually pretty good, but a majority of them is just marketing. Just marketing is all it is. So yeah, that's my like broad definition of metaverse, and unfortunately, I do really like the word. As like Snow Crash is a favorite book of mine. I read that back before the wave, and I highly recommend Snow Crash. But unfortunately, that word has been beaten to death. So I think you're right in that we probably will stop saying it just because a couple companies have taken hold of it and it's cringy. So XR, I guess, is the next one.
Yep.
The X initially was literally just people were tired of saying MR, AR, VR, so the X is just like a filler. You could also call it extended reality, so it's just the umbrella term for all of these things, virtual, augmented, mixed. So yeah, I like to keep that as nice and simple. And then Web 3, yeah, it's just the next step of the web, right? It's the NFTs, it's the immersive layer, it's all that stuff. It's just the next, Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. And again, it is sort of just a marketing term at the end of the day.
It's not just crypto.
It's not just crypto.
Good job.
Yeah, I think Web3 has actually been completely tainted by, crypto. It's probably not. They're going to have to do something else. There's a famous, probably the biggest person in VR from Kansas City, went to the same high school as I did. I'd like to read something that he said at the Oculus Connect after Mark Zuckerberg had his presentation in 2021. My primary thinking about that is the line that they've been saying for years now as a general relation to my argument against these efforts is the metaverse is a honeypot trap for architecture astronauts. And this is kind of chiding pejorative term for a class of programmers or designers that want to look at things at the very highest levels and don't want to think about the GPU microarchitectures or merging network streams, dealing with the architecture assets, packing any of the nuts and bolts details. But they want to talk about the high abstract terms about how well we'll have generic objects that can contain other objects and that have references to these and entitlements to that. And we can atomically pass control from one to the other. And I just want to tear my hair out because that's not so that not things that are actually important when you're deciding something, but Mark Zuckerberg has decided that it is now time to build a metaverse so enormous wheels are turning. That's not the entire quote, but that's John Carmack, who just left Meta or Facebook just recently, talking about this concept of a metaverse, and he's like, oh, we're going to probably turn away from that concept. What we're really talking about, in my opinion, is a metaverse would be adversarial interoperability. That's the basic thing. He goes on to basically state that there could be something positive like that. I'll try to do what he's trying to tell me to do, but I don't think one, may not be possible. Two, even if it is possible, whether it be worth the damn. So,
Well, and I'll cut, as I say, there's a lot of different directions. I will say, though, I don't like it at the end, I'm all about what's possible, and I don't like hearing people and say, well, that's not possible. I think the challenge with that is things that would have seemed impossible 10 years ago, 5 years ago even now, are like happening today too, and everything else. So never, in my opinion, never throw out, well, I'm not going to go somewhere because it's impossible. We struggle with that, in XR right now too. We've got quite a few active projects, like I said, work with companies, and to be honest, the hardware's clunky right now. It is just not very good. I'm encouraging people to build things that I know aren't going to work great today, because I'm pretty convinced in a year or two they're going to work really good and they're going to be a leader of that. So I think when you move into that world, there's a lot to roll with it. But anyway, thank you. I thought those were all good definitions, kind of level set. I'm going to jump right to the heart now of the title of this section. It is the metaverse, the future of digital media. So my question is, and I'm going to change that to XR. I think that's a little better umbrella. They're all umbrella terms. Is it the future of digital media? If your answer is yes, what does that future look like to you? If your answer is no, why do you think no? And I think either answer could be legitimate. So,
Let's start off, I'll go from like the advertising perspective and trying to get clients on board, even these AR filters. They always ask why, what's the point? All they're looking for, they want to know eyeballs, can we get these views? So I think it's going there and getting there. But for the next like 2 or 3 years of the immediate future, I don't know if it's there yet, just because of we all have played with headsets for the majority of the people in the room, but the newer, the advanced ones they sell out or they release, what was the latest price on like the three, like $1,200, which is a lot to shell out for someone that's not very interested, or if, you're trying to advertise through that on the advertising standpoint. So how do you get, is it worth a client to put all their time and effort into something that costs people $1,200 to get the barrier to entry?
what did you pay for your Vario?
Oh, $5,000.
Yeah.
And $2,000 a year.
So
My wallet's hurting.
Yeah.
So I think it'll happen. I think it's going to be in different ways that we see it. I think until headsets become accessible to everybody at a fair price, I wonder if we're going to have those virtual meetings within 2 or 3 years to the people that aren't about it and gung ho for it. So that's kind of an on the fence answer, but I don't know if it's there yet from advertising in the next.
For you guys,
few
it's not
years.
scalable, right?
Right.
Only one person can have a headset on at a time, where like a phone advertisement's a million people.
Yeah, and so they might switch to advertising in virtual spaces. If we're gonna have if you're in a race car game, if you're gonna have a billboard that you might drive by, maybe it's more subtle like that. So it's a little different in the advertising field.
So I'll drill down a little bit. I won't completely let you off, but that doesn't be a fair answer, because I think so. It's the future. It's just we can't quite see where in the future. So, what is that gap? What needs to close in that gap? I mean, is it all hardware? Is it everybody needs to wear a pair of Apple glasses and we're ready to go? Or?
I think it's whatever. Basically, yeah. I think it is really whatever becomes the trend. We talked a little bit in the keynote that it's so fast, everyone's moving so quickly, or we talked about in digital media space, some trends coming by with the flash. And so if AR and VR and all the headset spaces start taking off, there are going to be clients that want to go that route or already express interest. I won't get into too much detail, but there's clients that, they see everything's going around. Crypto is always pretty big, so if clients ask us like, what are NFTs? What's your POV? What's this kind of stuff? So I think you need to be prepared for it to come, but until that becomes realistic, of people can either experience more VR stuff through maybe mobile apps instead of needing a full headset. Maybe it's just a clip-on that you can add to it. So I think it's just the technology needs to become more accessible to the masses, or how they view all their social media essentially.
Did we burn ourselves a little bit? I think of even like Google Glass. I think a lot of people have had bad experiences.
Right.
So far. Does that slow the path down a little bit?
This is my personal opinion. I don't think so. I think the interests are still there, and I don't think it's been burned too badly, because there are still, we saw today, there's still 68 million people using it. It's still popular. I enjoy it. I know other people still get a kick out of it. So I think it's still on the rise, but it's not, we haven't hit that shoot up Wall Street yet to get, clients and other advertisers to, get on board.
I'll let y'all talk now, Joe.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I'll ask people.
Yeah, I'd like to run through the rest of this panel.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask.
I don't know why the screen's
Yeah.
showing us colors behind.
Yeah,
but
that's
all
fine.
right.
I'll
This
ask.
will slight distraction.
I'll ask here. How many people have never used have never used nothing but a smartphone? So a phone that didn't have a screen. How many people? in
So
this
who
room?
here has had a flip phone some point in their life?
Okay. And who has never had a flip phone? Only smartphones. Okay. Okay, so it's about 40%. Yeah, so basically, when I first started at Motorola, I was a device person and a network person and the business development, and we had 7 million cell phones in the world. There's what, 3 billion, 4 billion people on the planet. Today, there's 8 billion people on the planet. 5 billion people basically have smartphones. So no one is buying feature phones, they call them now, non-smartphones. So, 10 years ago, if I would have asked, is the smartphone and there was 1 billion people at the time in 2011 that has smartphones, and I would say, was that the future of digital media? And I think over the last 10 years, the answer would be yes. So the question is, with its new immersive devices, that's what XR is, these immersive devices. One is, will they replace the smartphone? And I think the answer to that in the next 10 years is yes. And then two, how will it do it and how will it change? The smartphone, how it changed, you didn't have Facebook like you had before. I mean, there was a desktop app for that, but it totally changed dramatically. Right now, almost 60% of people's connection to the internet is with their smartphone, with their mobile devices. So, this is changing, how we take pictures, how we take video, how we share content. Right now, we're sharing 6 billion pictures with our smartphones every day. And, so there's this massive amount of digital media being created, news being created with the smartphone. What will happen when it's immersive is going to be incredible. So right now, this is clunky. Now, the other question I would ask this group is, how many of you have done some type of generative AI, let's see, raise your hands. So you use either DALL-E, ChatGPT, or art, creating art, raise your hands again if you use it. Okay, so my recommendation, if you got anything out of this, Matt's presentation was fantastic. Oh, not Matt, okay. So, yeah.
The beards are very similar.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
He's got the bigger beard.
He has a bigger beard. But if get an account, they're all free. Learn how to use the prompts and learn how to be creative. There's this notion of garbage in, garbage out, but I will use the term creativity in, creativity out. So my recommendation to you in the next, 1 week, sign up for an account, start playing with this technology. It's free to use. You'll learn how to use the prompts. You'll become a prompt engineer, and you'll work with collaboration with artificial intelligence. So that would be my recommendation. And then the second recommendation is come to see Michael's lab on the 31st. It's free to attend. There's free pizza.
Free pizza.
Yeah, and you'll see some amazing things. So I really recommend that as well. I'm looking forward to seeing the Barrio device, because that's when the digital world becomes almost close to the physical, world. That you can't distinguish between the two.
It's very good.
And that's when this is going to be an incredible experience. Just like when the smartphone first came out, it was clunky, and in the next 5 years, it became amazing. So with artificial intelligence, along with amazing devices, the metaverse, the immersive technologies, the immersive web is going to have amazing things.
I'll just do the follow-up question to that: is how many students have turned in a paper written by ChatGPT? Don't answer that.
How many students wish they had ChatGPT back in the day to do papers?
No, I did think Doug's analogy of the smartphones was really good, though. I mean, as I said, and some of you to go back, but I mean, it was a decade ago. 10 years ago, nobody had a smartphone. How do you program? How do you do a business for something that so few people have? And then literally overnight, everybody has them. And I think we're a little bit in that phase that it's coming. I mean, 60 million people is still not a lot of people. I mean, it's still less than 20%. And those are probably people that have, tried it once or twice, so they aren't using it regularly and stuff too. So I think we will see that trend and going. So I think the smartphone analogy is a really strong one with that. So.
Well, now basically people aren't interested for the most part, unless they're like a big company trying to produce for those things that
Right.
wasn't easy back then. Now it's good. Varsho, isn't that basically Retina level?
Yeah.
That's what's fine. And the other thing was, I totally forgot.
Right. Well, I'll add one more point to Doug's too before we then go on to, except I lost it. Oh, you were talking about that you thought the headsets were going to replace phones. I will say I think there'll be an intermediate period where they're both. That's why I mentioned Apple. Apple's been rumor forever. We've tested out a couple New Eyes and the HTC Flow that are both toggled to your phone. So I think we will go through a transition that the phone will kind of be the computer and the headset will be an auxiliary to it. Ultimately, I agree with you. I think they will ultimately replace it.
Yeah, one comment there is.
Can I keep? Yeah, go ahead. Doug.
Yeah, it's about the cloud. So basically, right now, a lot of the processing's on the device for battery life. You need all-day battery life. You're not going to get it with a pair of glasses. So what you're going to do is all the processing, all the image and displaying is going to be done in the cloud, and only the post-processing is called split rendering is the technology, so that then that's can for longer battery life, less power consumption.
Power generation.
Doug, how do you think 5G and that implementation across the states is going to affect
Yeah, that's what, and actually, there's actually a shift between 5G, 5G Advanced, and even 6G to Wi-Fi 7. That's what's coming out. There's Wi-Fi
I was gonna
6E
say, can
and
you
7.
talk a little bit about that more?
I'll tell you, maybe I'll follow.
No, go ahead, go
Okay,
ahead.
right now. Okay, so basically, you need lower latency for immersive technology. You need better pixel quality, or you get nauseous. And then where the processing is done, because if you put a lot of processing onto the device, it uses up battery life as well. So, there's coming out with technology to have low latency down to 1 millisecond. That's 5G, and 6G gets you down to 0.1 millisecond. But Wi-Fi 7 is coming along as well. So there will be this tension between, do you upgrade to Wi-Fi 7 or do you go to 6G, 5G, 5G Advanced, 6G? And both will come along. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But right now, like in the old days, making even a phone call on a cell phone was expensive. When I first started, it was $3 a minute to make a phone call. And then it became 10 cents a minute. Now, no one pays for phone calls, right? In fact, you probably don't even want to use your phone to make a phone call. You just, but it's free to use your phone call, right? And even data now, most people here have unlimited plans. So, we went from voice being too cheap to meter to data being too cheap to meter, and then we're going to have these immersive experiences being too cheap to meter. So this technology requires communication. I mean, that's my background. You need AI, cloud computing. You need artificial intelligence. So all these pieces, the underlying network, to make it seamless for the end user. But you're in the digital media space, so if you think about, don't worry so much about all this underlying technology. What we want to do is have experiences that you can create amazing content of digital media that will just be amazing. That people will say, "Wow, how did you create this?" Right? And show me something I couldn't even imagine. And by the way, if you go into like Mid-Journey and type in some things, you will see amazing artwork that's created. That's like, how in the world did this get created? And then you're like the master creator and letting the AI do all the work, right? It's like, okay, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden you get this amazing experience. And so initially is text and images, and they're very quickly it's going to be coming out to be a video, a sound, and then eventually 3D immersive experiences, and that's going to be amazing.
Is the metaverse the future?
Is it the future?
No.
No. Okay, all right, I like it.
It's literally right now. I mean, the only thing that's really changing is our interface, right? Any World of Warcraft player or any MMO player has experienced the metaverse, right? And
Man,
you
we're
didn't need an
losing
NFT.
crowd already.
You didn't need to spend money on an NFT to spend money on a piece of gear or something. Like, people are already spending thousands of dollars a year to look cool in a game, and they don't actually own those assets, right? The whole metaverse thing, we're getting these VR headsets, but as someone developing a VR game, we're cross-platform. You can play our game on your phone or your computer without a headset, right? Because it's the same exact technology. The only real difference is now you're tracking where someone's looking and you're tracking their hands. Now, the Sword Art Online, full dive, Matrix, put a wire in the back of your head, all really cool sci-fi stuff, but that's 100 years out, right? At the end of the day, Metaverse exists. This is just our next interface to it. The interface is getting way better. The good news, because that's the case, is that skills that exist today already apply, right? You can build a VR application with the same skills you already had. The only biggest difference is going to be design, right? No one knows yet how to really design reaching in and grabbing stuff. That's stuff that people like us are figuring out by doing it. Which, by the way, back to having to self-learn it, the only way to learn that stuff is to do it, because there is no book on this. Now, all the other things, right, like the AI generating a 3D world, absolutely. That's definitely going to happen in the next few years. And people are going to call that the metaverse, and sure, maybe it is, but again, it's a marketing term. All the technology to do that already exists today. It's just not good enough. You can already ChatGPT and hook that up to an audio thing. You can look up YouTube videos of developers who have done this. They've put NPCs in their games. You go up to the NPC and you say hello, and it's a little laggy, but they go, "Hello, how are you?" And that's not a scripted thing. That was all ChatGPT hooked up into it, going through a voice synthesizer. So again, these things exist. Everything exists today. What's that quote? The future exists, it's just not evenly distributed, right? That is the metaverse. It is already here. And unfortunately, 5G is a disappointment. Because the good 5G that's fast enough to do, texture streaming, doesn't go through concrete walls.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's why
Very short
actually there's a shift in the industry shifting to Wi-Fi 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or Wi-Fi 6E actually, and then
limitations.
Wi-Fi 7, because specifically because of that.
And of course, they will also, like my friend has this like 5G hotspot, and we find most of the time that then, once everybody starts coming home from work, they had basically imported the device into that same area, so then it gets oversaturated. So then,
So, and then like the hardware, right? So Apple's headset, from what I understand, I don't think they're actually trying to get to the augmented reality you wear it everywhere market. What they're trying to replace is your TV. You sit at home and you make a 1,000-inch screen on your wall and watch a movie in your living room. That's what they're trying to do, have amazing audio and amazing pixel quality. And for sure they'll do mixed reality and stuff too, because they may as well. But I don't think they're anywhere close to wearing it every day all the time. It turns out photons are really hard to wrangle. So if you come to UMKC and try these headsets out, they're really awesome, right? Like if you play Pokemon Go, wouldn't it be cool if Pikachu could run behind the tree? Again, he can, but in an AR headset, any of these devices you guys tried, if it's bright outside, it's all washed out, because essentially it's just a prism onto the lens that's in front of your face. The photons aren't just being like captured in space there. So if it's bright outside, they no longer work that
He's
way.
talking like new eyes and the
Yeah,
HD.
and the military, $400 million to work with HoloLens to bring mixed reality into these helmets, and the soldiers don't like it because at nighttime, guess what glows? You stick your head up and then you get shot because you can be seen. So the best like mixed reality experience is actually pass through, and what that requires is a VR headset with cameras on it, and the cameras see reality, it comes through. That Vario headset with the retinal resolution, that pass through is actually so good it almost feels like you're just wearing sunglasses because the pixel density is so high. But if you've used a Quest 2 or a Quest 1 or any headset, when you step outside of your safety zone, you can see reality, right? You can actually, the headset knows depth information. You can do mixed reality with that. It just looks ugly because the cameras are low quality. But that'll be where you can actually get these awesome experiences. But then the hardware all of a sudden is not sexy to wear. And are you really going to wear that around all day, every day? And then my other point to why
So we need to wait till they build them into contacts, right?
yeah, which Mojo Vision.
No, there's something out there. There's something out there. I know. Yeah.
Mojo Vision just
Yeah, oh, yeah.
stopped working on that.
Yeah.
But that's another thing too, is like, you have these awesome glasses, and people think, yeah, I want to look somewhere, and I want the price of the thing that's inside that store to show up. I want advertisements. I want all these things. But people are distracted. We're already distracted looking at a screen. It turns out that we may not get these glasses that everybody wants because that use case isn't all that great. Wouldn't you rather the city streets you walk on just be physically beautiful? Why do we need glasses to like beautify our spaces? There's definitely going to be use cases, training, all this stuff for sure. I mean, companies are spending billions of dollars on this. I talk to them every day of the week, and there's definitely career opportunities. But the Iron Man grabbing stuff in midair and working this way, it's just not as intuitive as you think it would be. Humans need that tactile feedback, and we'll get there, but
The tactical stuff doesn't work very well yet. Well, Riley, I was going to go with Riley because
Yeah, I wanted to ask all three of you. So 2022 is supposed to be the year of the metaverse, right? Literally. What do you guys think Mark Zuckerberg got wrong with his, his investments? This year?
real quick, I'll tell you right now. What made more money, World of Warcraft or Second Life?
I mean, gaming is a pretty good industry.
But
I'm leaning towards the gaming, so I think
Yeah.
Blizzard wins that.
leaning towards the well-crafted specific experience.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft made bazillions of dollars. Second Life, while it still has a niche community that plays it, and they do make millions, millions is a tiny number right in today's days and age. And Zuckerberg had this assumption that people would want these digital twins. But even in a world where people are working remote, like, we're human. Like, we want to talk to people. And if I'm going to spend time outside of reality, it better be fucking awesome.
did he just get sucked in by Ready Player One?
Yeah. Well, one comment.
I say, yeah. Well, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I would have the
I
comment.
call Facebook out as IOI.
Hey, man, just chill it up. Let the guy speak.
Yeah. So my comment to that is that Mark, he did say that this was going to be a 10-year plan. Yeah. So the problem.
Respect.
Yeah.
That's a respectful thing.
Yeah. And so he said that, but he saw this as where the future. So again, going back to the question, the future is this immersive experience. Unfortunately, the expectation of the street was, you were going to keep growing and this would be amazing. So it was kind of overhyped. So 2022 was the hype of the metaverse, right? Of the immersive web. And I think we're still about 3 generations away from devices where that you'll have these amazing experiences. So that's where I'm thinking that, right now the average person spends 7 hours a day on the internet, 58% of the time on your mobile device. When will you spend at least 1 hour a day on an immersive device? I'm thinking 2027, so about 3 generations more of devices, and you'll spend about an hour a day. And then, but once you do that, will be 1 billion people doing that. And then in 5 years later, so about 2032, you'll be spending 5 hours a day with 5 billion people on these immersive devices. So it's going to take time. Right now, on your PC, if you're into games, you have a much better, richer
Can we replace
experience.
Netflix with immersive experiences?
Yeah, that's going to take a while, but it will come, and then you'll eventually get into these immersive experiences that the optics will be good enough. It will be indistinguishable from the physical world. Right now, from a sound perspective, we can do that with earbuds, right? You can, it's indistinguishable. I think actually smell will come first before the sight. That you'll actually have smells that come up and you say, okay, I want to smell a rose, I want to smell this. And you have that option that's going to be indistinguishable. But then eventually you're going to have sight. And then finally, I think you'll have touch. But it's coming. I think it's about 10 years, so it's a journey.
I'll separate from more of the technical side of it and where it went wrong. I think just honestly, part of his public image that gets people hyped about this kind of stuff, it turned it into a meme and more of a laughing stock than this awesome technology we can. I think probably everyone in this room might know the one I'm talking about, when he had his digital avatar traveling around different parts of the world and they just green screened it out in the background and made a laughing stock of it. So I think as a marketing person in me, he could have went a very different route with his resources to show.
Which was crazy because 3 years ago they did the 360 images you could grab and go, and it was cool.
Yeah.
And they went down.
Yeah. So I think they missed the cue on the way to show it off and promote.
As a marketer, you're like,
Yeah, I'm like, what? You have all this technology. Let's show it off and show the possibilities instead of.
I'll be the rare exception to defend Zuckerberg a little bit and say I have no idea if he's right or wrong about Meta and where it's going and all of that, but I at least commend him. There's always a historic case study in business of Kodak. Kodak owned film and stuff, and people kept saying you need to move digital, digital, and they didn't. So I think the Facebook is a dying entity, even though it is still growing. People still don't realize that it's growing.
Right.
He's still, even with his whole investment in Meta, they made about $4 billion this year, and they're sitting at about $20 billion in cash. Meta's not going away. So I at least applaud him for saying, I'm going to shoot for the future. I'm not going to live in the past. But shoot, he may be wrong. He's definitely taken some missteps on getting there, but at least I like that thought. Yeah.
Just kind of something. A question is, everyone in here understands that digital media has kind of lost its barriers to entry. That everyone here can work in video. We've talked about Canva and those resources, but when we're talking about VR and AR, we haven't said anything that's kind of under $1,000. So, what are the things in place that are bridging that opportunity gap, and how can younger people or people who don't have these skills get into this world and make sure that they're being brought along with the future just as much and not be behind the same way that these things are here now? How can they get a jump start on that?
Yes. I can tell you what I did. Before I started getting into this, if you look up Lens Studio, which is Snapchat's AR platform, Effect House, which is TikTok's, and then Spark AR or Meta AR, they kind of go back and forth on the name, which is Instagram and Facebook's. All of it's open source. You could literally go to it, download it for free. There's plenty of documentations, plenty of YouTubers that make tutorials, and it's basically your own ambition to get to it. I started off just by seeing something online, being like, I think I can do that, and maybe I could do that a little better, and going to it. And now it's kind of getting into, okay, I want to make this filter or this augmented reality overlay, but I want a 3D object. There's plenty of websites out there that I can pull an object, but it's not quite yet. So what if I teach it myself? So now you're in the rabbit hole of trying to learn Blender or another 3D software. So
open source, by the way.
yeah, it's all out there for free. It's just
And most of them
Get to
have
it.
rendering tools that you
Right.
can render without owning the equipment
Yeah.
that you ultimately need to do.
Yeah.
Same like a Unity, Unreal.
I suggest Unity because I would like a future check the 3D blog, there's one for
Yeah.
like face filters, like very easy to like just an introductory course, you know, there's
Yeah.
Jimmy Learn, for example, I'm sure Epic has the same.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you got,
that goes back to what I said earlier about the metaverse is already here. Like for VR, for instance, if you wanted, say you really wanted to make a VR game, but you couldn't afford a headset, but you happen to have a computer, well, Unity's free, Blender's free. You can learn to 3D model for free. You can learn to use Unity for free, and you could build 95% of your experience. Yeah, you'd have to use WASD and your mouse to move around or control, or you wouldn't have the headset, but you could get there. And I can tell you, as someone that is always looking for people to hire when I can afford to hire them, if you came to me and said, "Hey, I've never had a headset, but look at this thing I made," you're still going to get hired. So,
And there will be opportunities, as I said, we put on a developer challenge, whatever, now almost 2 years ago, but T-Mobile sponsored that. They provided us with, as we said, the HTC Flows from the New Wave. We had HoloLens, we had a bunch of Quests, we had a lot of stuff that was available for startups or teams, or just somebody that says, "Hey, I've got an idea, I want to do it," available. Michael runs a lab that is, in theory, open to the public for people to come in and test. I mean, the whole Plaster Free Enterprise Center at UMKC was really created that, there's 3D printers, there's a whole woodworking thing, there's the VR lab, a whole bunch of stuff that's there. So there are some community assets, and we, that's why, and as I said, that's why we put on the challenge to be able to put those tools out there so you can. So if you look a little bit, you can find them. They're not in abundance, I would say, in Kansas City right now, but hopefully we'll continue.
Well, and that's
get
why
more of
we're
those.
trying to do this
Right,
VRA
building up the
association.
association and-
Yeah, so, if you're at all interested in this, come to the event on the 31st if you're available. At least, I'll give you my card. We'll get you on, we'll put you on your mailing list, because we're going to have Zoom meetings. It's free to attend. You don't have to be a member. Actually, for the last 3 years, I was attending VR/AR events that are free. They have meetings in like Miami, around the world, but then you can stream onto it. It's on demand, so you can start learning, what is going on in the industry and education and healthcare, and all kinds of different fields. So that's where while you can learn on your own, it's the collaboration with people, and that's the value of taking a class at UMKC or University of Central Missouri. So you start to learn this when the KC Digital Drive has a hackathon, or maybe we'll do a hackathon too on the VR/AR Association, and we'll give prize money. In fact, we just were selected. This one group I was working with, they had $100,000 of prize money, and we got shortlisted to create immersive content education to solve climate change.
That was an Amazon program, right?
Oh, well, no, that's an
I thought it was
AEWE
Right. Oh, okay.
organization. So, there's a whole bunch of, in fact, if you look at all the hackathons out there, I mean, there's lots of money in this space, right? In grants and so forth. So, if you have any questions, find a mentor to work with, because you'll be amazed at how much you can learn, if just with a little bit of help.
Devpost.com is a good site if you want to look for a lot of hackathons and things that are global, but a lot of them you can do from anywhere and stuff. And they will almost always have 20 or 30 and AR/VR specifically going at any time. So there's a lot of resources out there. I had one more great question, but I really want to spend some time. I want to open up a little bit more to the audience. If nobody else comes in, Jeff's ready. His hand, I see.
Yeah. Going back to AR and mass adoption for stuff like glasses, like I remember when Google Glass came out, it was kind of like, cool, but you're really going to wear those all day.
Right.
And so,
That's what I said. I think Google Glass actually set things back a little bit. Yeah.
so like making the hardware less obtrusive, I think is key. Can you guys talk about like things, bleeding edge things that you're maybe seeing there that could help adoption? Like, for example, like the day that I could get Apple Maps on like Warby Parker sunglasses or Warby Parker glasses to use. I know you mentioned like we all probably don't need more notifications, but like things that would be smart to actually
ski
use.
helmets have actually been doing that for years, showing like the slopes as you go down. There's CES just happened, so if you Google CES VR announcements or AR announcements, whatever, you're actually going to see that they're getting really, really close to exactly what you said. They're like Ray-Ban style glasses. The only real difference is these things are a little bit thicker to hold some of the computation, or the compute is offloaded onto your phone.
Yeah.
We're actually very, very close to something that looks good. That could do, an arrow saying go here, turn left, whatever. That's like, I mean, you could have it today as long as I didn't get too, like from this distance, it would look normal. But if we were right next to each other, then you would say, hey, your glasses look a little funny.
Yeah.
We're there today. Right.
Doesn't also have for the cars.
Yeah. A lot of cars have a little projector that projects up on
I
the
think there's also
windshield.
motorcycle helmets.
Yep.
Yeah.
As we said, batteries getting better. I think batteries are still a big hole. The power management overall is a problem. You know,
Yeah.
they get hot, they get heavy, they're everything. So I think as we get better there, that will help improve.
Directly tethering that lower
Yeah.
than that.
Tethering helps. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I didn't love either the tethering experience, as I said, the HTC Flow and the new eyes did very little for me. But yeah,
So when you talk about AR versus VR experiences, do
Yeah.
you think, like, you know, because you talk about these problems with AR, do you think like that isolated, put on the goggles VR experience is going to be that future that we'll have like in 10 years? Like, it just seems much more isolating than like using your phone, even though that is. But like, where do you see that future VR technology?
Well, we won't be looking down at our phone. On average, people look down at their phones every 4 minutes. They're looking at their phone. We'll be looking out into the world, and then when we need information with our artificial intelligence, it will give us that information.
Okay, so it would be mobile.
Yeah, it'll be mobile now, and you'll use the same device. The only difference is when I need to augment the reality, like see the physical world and just complement it. You know, that's why Microsoft calls it mixed reality. When I need to close off, and like let's have this meeting, but we're going to have this meeting in the top of Mount Everest. Then all of a sudden we do VR so that we can have a virtual space that everything looks like we're in Mount Everest. Going back to the device question, Qualcomm just announced their AR chip, which has 2.5 times more processing power for our AI capabilities at half the battery life. And they're actually distributing the processing across a couple chips, and then it's distributed together with networking. So it's a way to make it more friendly. Qualcomm has a relationship with Microsoft, and it's interesting that Microsoft's also working very closely with OpenAI. So there's this AI along with XR technology for immersive experience. It's going to be really interesting. So, but there's times you want to be AR, there's times you want to be VR, and your device will do both over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's not like you get one or the other.
I think like one of the worries is VR going to cause more isolation than we already have? And I'm an optimist and a pessimist, but so Netflix. I mean, how many people work 8, 9, 10 hours a day, go home, eat dinner, and then they watch Netflix, and then they rinse and repeat, right? Kind of depressing, but that's the majority of Americans. That's their life. So how much different is sitting in a room alone watching a screen to having something on your face? Like, my point is, it's not going to necessarily make it better or worse. It's probably going to do both. Is my
my answer I think would have been on that. I think the immersive experience will be more of a niche. I mean, you'll go in for education, for a meeting, do that. I think augmented reality ultimately will be blended into our life. It will become more
It'll have to be
ever
the mass
present, right? So I think augmented reality actually is the bigger, longer term prediction. But that I agree, both will coexist. They'll coexist with the same equipment, but immersive experience will be more niche. I want to go play a game. I want to go have a meeting here. I want to learn. I want to do an education session, whatever.
Yeah. David Rose has a book, Super Sight. He's a head of media, MIT Media Labs. So look up his book, Super Sight, he's a big AR believer that it's going to be augmented reality, that we're going to enhance our sight and have information. So, the information flow. But again, we can't be bombarded. In fact, they call it hyper reality, where you're just constantly getting bombarded. Some people may like that, to live in a, rock concert your entire life. Personally, I don't like that. So, how do you have this reality? I call it, they're talking about diminished reality, where you only get the information you need when you need it.
Yeah, Connor, I'll go to you in a second, but I will do one. Doug had mentioned earlier a company where we're called MetaView. I think they're a great example of augmented reality in that they do surgical navigation. So think of them, they take a image, whether it's a CAT scan, an ultrasound, MRI, whatever, they convert that to a 3D image, and then they can overlay that exactly into the body. So they do this surgical navigation. So then a surgeon can be standing over, instead of having to look at a screen or do that, basically seeing inside of the body, because you have an augmented reality overlay to a millimeter, so they can actually perform surgery doing it. So I think that's how that can end up being played out more. Connor, go ahead.
My question is more specifically for Joe. It's just what do the conversations look like when you're trying to justify the value of these augmented reality filters you're pitching to them? Like, are you guys using any sort of metadata or metrics to quantify the value, or like what does the conversation kind of look like with them?
Yeah, I'll hit it on twofold. One, there's clients that have interests and they really don't. There's like, we want to do something that no one else is doing, or the other side of that is it's kind of on me or our team to pitch it. Obviously, they want to see numbers, metrics, whatever they can have behind it. So I always go into a meeting with them, asking them what's their goal. Is this to sell a product to inform on a specific campaign, and this is just going to be a nice asset to it, or is it specifically we want to get as many eyeballs as possible? So like one of our clients that just finished a project, they did something for New Year's Eve, and they just wanted like an overlay that kind of make it feel like you're in the same New Year's Eve Times Square party. So you've got a background around it, hat, confetti. They didn't really care about analytics behind that. They just wanted something people could share out behind it. And we're talking a little bit about it is how do you then take those filters and make them authentic? Because as a user, you're not going to be wanting to post your TikTok video that's branded with all of your advertiser stuff. How do you find that middle ground of branded without being branded, essentially kind of subtle branding? Because when you use a filter, it's still going to be attached back to it. So it'll say New Year's Sim by Joe, and it's that kind of stuff. So the conversations really go twofold. It's, hey, we know we're taking a risk doing this. Is it worth it? I use the analogy, I used to watch Storm Chasers a bunch as a kid, and they'd always say, this is the perfect conditions for a top tier storm. So you can make and you can know the perfect conditions. Is this shareable? Is this authentic? Is this quality design? Does this fit with our campaign? But there's really no guarantee that the storm's going to happen or if you're going to go viral. So it's relaying that client trust back to them, saying, we believe in this. This has shown worked, and here's some examples that have worked. So it's just kind of both ways. So they care about analytics, but they care about quality too. So hopefully that answered both.
He alluded to the question I didn't ask was because, and you said when you brought up, we go in the game and pay a lot of money for skins to look cool, and I was thinking of Matt and talking about authentic. When we're talking about really creating very artificial things, how do you stay authentic to that and everything else? But that was a question we didn't ask. So you guys can all ponder that on your own. We probably have time for at least one question, and if we want to bump into the networking time, maybe even a second if there anybody else out there with. Okay.
There actually is an official AR VR. Before you even knew about it, there is an official Discord for the KC AR meetup.
Okay.
So I don't know if that would be a good place for.
They could pop into it. So. Okay, so with that said, this is officially the end of the conference at this point, but we are now going into the networking, so we'll have about an hour. We have some snacks, we have some more drinks out there. There's about 6 or 7 companies. They'll be kind of floating around in the hallway. That is if we let Connor get out.